Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Kima is all about natural parenting, natural living, and a whole lot
A
extra.
whole lot.
And of course, we are your hosts, Lauren and Kima. Please chime into the conversation with your comments on this Facebook Live post if you'd like to interact. Today, we are so happy to welcome Glenn and Yvette Henry. If you're on Instagram, you may actually already know them as Belief Mel and Mrs. Melanin. With the anticipation of the arrival of their second child and his lack of joy in being an employee, at the close of summer of 2014, Glenn and Yvette Henry decided that Glenn would quit his job and become a stay-at-home dad, as it would help offset the costs of childcare. Over the course of the first year home with their two sons, Glenn documented his days with the boys. In October of 2015, he launched his wildly successful YouTube channel, Belief in Fatherhood, in which he tells honest stories about the ins and outs of being a dad. The channel's mission is to equip fathers, give hope to mothers, and inspire children. Since launching Belief in Fatherhood, the Henrys have added another chocolate baby to the family, and Yvette has left the classroom to become a stay-at-home parent while Glenn continues growing the platform he has created for their family with Belief in Fatherhood. The couple now operates as a team from their home as they work to build their brand. This summer, they launched their podcast called How Married Are You? There, you will find them having raw conversations about anything having to do with being married, parenting, and more based off their 8 years of marriage. So again, thank you so much for joining us and for willing to be a part of the show. I know we're going to have a good one and just a really great discussion.
So welcome.
Thank you guys so much for having us. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So let's start with your Instagram names. Why Belief Mel and Mrs. Melanin?
Yeah, Belief Melanin is actually my full rap name. So
rap name. Okay.
Yeah. I started out as an MC about 12 years ago. I named myself Belief Melanin, and the reason for that was because as a kid, I wanted to be, I grew up wanting to be white, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so Belief Melanin was kind of like this reminder to always believe in myself and believe that that the Father gave me melanin and to believe in that aspect.
Okay.
And so Belief Melanin just kind of became the name, and Belief Mel is a shorthand of it, and Yvette just she's Mrs. Melanin, she's my wife, so that's where that name came from.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I didn't know you were a rapper. That's pretty cool. Do you still
that's
rap?
where I got started. Yeah, so if you watch Belief in Fatherhood, a lot of the songs on the show is all me. I'm rapping. If you hear any voices on the thing, it's usually me or a friend of mine singing or something like that. So yeah, that's where I get all the music and the production from, because I have a long history of relationships with great producers.
Okay.
And that's afforded me the opportunity to just get production whenever I needed it.
Cool. That's very cool. So how long were you married before you had children?
We were married, I think it was about 2.5 years before Theo was born.
Okay. And what are the ages of your children?
So Theo's the oldest. He's 5.5. Uriah just turned 4 in June, and Anaya she's 18 months. So she'll be turning 2 in February.
Oh, okay.
March.
So I, as you know, we are entrepreneurs ourselves. I don't know if you know us, but we do have Crunchy Boutique as well. And so therefore we are risk takers, just like you. We really love your background story and how you came to be and all of that. But you said you quit your job to be a stay-at-home dad. How did you come to make that decision? Because that's, that can be very risky.
So Yvette just showed up.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi. No problem. Welcome.
Thank you.
So do you want to answer that question? How did I come to the conclusion of quitting my job? Because it was mostly your decision.
It was my prompting.
It was.
Okay. So basically, I was what was it? We were pregnant with our second child,
Wait. I
And
want you to hold on for a second. We're having some audio issues here.
Yeah. Is it possible to call in with your just like a regular call instead of a FaceTime audio call?
Yes, that's possible.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
because
let's-
it's real warbly. I don't know if that's if that's even a word, but
Yeah, I think the audio may be clearer if you call in. So let's do that.
Okay, I'll call you in 30
okay.
seconds.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you for bearing with us.
Yes. Hang on, y'all. Hang on. We'll be right back. We're having them. If you're just joining us, we're having them call back in because the audio was not very clear. If you were with us, you heard that. So we're hoping that when they call back in, it'll be clearer. So just bear with us.
Okay, here we go. Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
that's-
that's much better. But anyway, we were discussing how Belief Mel came to the conclusion that you needed to quit your job.
okay, so were we pregnant or did we have? We were pregnant with our second son, and Glenn had just been over the course of our marriage. He had been working jobs that he didn't really enjoy.
Uh-huh.
It had gotten to the point where he'd come home and I'd ask him about his day, and he would be like, "I don't even want to talk about it. Could you stop asking me?"
Oh.
Well, I would say, yeah, I would say it was more like it's not so much I didn't enjoy the work. I just was working any job I could to make money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so at that point, like most of his income was going, like if we looked at how much we were spending on childcare, most of his income was going toward that. And if we were to add a second child to needing childcare, it was kind of like it would be
Obsolete.
obsolete.
Right.
So I just kind of threw it out there, like, what do you think about, just staying home with the kids?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I said you have to. I just said, what do you think about it?
Yeah, it was like one of those discussions where I just kind of looked at it like, well, I don't know what the rest of the world is going to think about that. I really cared about, my perception as a husband and like what it means to be a man.
Right.
And I felt like that I had to work.
Right.
And so that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, like it got to the point where I was just like, you know what? Why not? Like I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and he was like, man, if you can't make, this amount of money just by working at home, you probably shouldn't be doing music. Because that's what the thing was, is I could do music, and I was a creative, and I could make music from home. And she couldn't make money at home, but I could. So because I could, spend the night staying up late and working on music, I would, it would make sense for us. And so I made a lot of music. I put out a couple albums, and they didn't really do too well. But during the process of that is what helped me realize that, like I don't want to be traveling around the world rapping for, people I don't know.
Right.
When the biggest stage I'll stand on is in front of my children and my wife.
Exactly.
That's the most important place for me to be, where I'll have the most effect.
Right.
You can get someone pumped up at a show and they can raise their hands and scream and yell for 2 hours, and then they go home and then they have to go back to work the next day. But your kids are going to miss that time. So it was just that balance there.
Okay.
And so were you homeschooling at that point?
No.
Oh,
I mean, he was doing a lot of educational things.
Yeah, it was a lot of education, but it wasn't homeschooling. When I came home, Theo was like 2.
Oh, okay. So they were pretty young at that time.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it was really hard.
okay, so you end up quitting your job. You decide to be a stay-at-home dad. So what brought you to say, okay, I need to start documenting what's happening here? How did you? Yeah.
What made you start documenting your fatherhood journey?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like I just said, it was really, really hard. So the first week before I did it, I was like, man, this is gonna be easy. Like I'll just be, it's gonna be hanging out with the kids, and then like I just felt so weak and disabled and like tired and like discouraged, because it was like you know, your children are now your new bosses. They're your managers.
Yeah.
They don't give you a pat on the back. They don't
They
tell you you're doing a good job. They just like, I don't like you. I want mommy. I'm hungry. I'm I want to play. I want to go to sleep. I'm tired. I don't want to go. You know what I mean? So it's just all this. And I just got so tired. And it got to the point where I was getting anxious. And so the camera, like I was starting to lose it. Like I just was starting to lose it. I was trying to express how I was feeling to Yvette. And she could not understand me because she was a working mom. And she was just like, dude, like you stay home all day. Like just stay home. You know what I mean? Like she did not understand. And so I turned the camera on for accountability because I was lacking joy, honestly. And so the camera became a way of like, hey man, this is just what's going on at the house. I'm chilling and the kids are crying and that's it. You know what I mean? And people found it hilarious. And it was also a way of therapy for me because people were like, oh man, I've been through that. Keep your head up. Oh man, it seems so fun. Or like, oh, thank you so much. Now I want to have kids. Like it was like a lot of communication between me and the internet, which helped my process.
And so you immediately started on YouTube?
No, I immediately started on Instagram while I was working on a record, and people kept telling me, man, you should start a YouTube channel. I probably had like 25 good people in my life say, this is how you should start a YouTube channel. This is how you should do it. And these aren't people who are successful on YouTube. They just were like, this is what you should do. And I hadn't been a YouTube watcher. I never really watched YouTube like that, you know, until like I actually like investigated and I saw some people who I admired, and I was like, oh, this is how I would do it if I could start a YouTube channel.
And so what's the interaction been with your YouTube subscribers and your journey?
Oh, it's been love. My comment section is you know, one of the best places for me to go to receive honest feedback and good support. I'm usually a person that is like low self-esteem, you know, doesn't believe in myself, you know. Really? That's the name. Yeah, very, very, very much so. And so when I go to the comment section, people are like, oh, I don't want to give you a big head, but I'm always thinking about how I need to better myself and my family, analyzing my thoughts and all this stuff. And so the comment section is a very safe place for me. And I'm very protective over the comment section. So sometimes you'll have people come in there and talking reckless about my wife or the kids, and I'll just delete them from the channel because it's a home. Like, you know, you would never come in my house like and talk to me like that.
Exactly. And, you know, it's interesting that you said you have low self-esteem. You would not know it by looking at you. You both seem so confident. It's really been a joy to watch you and just interacting with each other and everything. And the other thing that makes me feel like that surprises me that you have low self-esteem is even your names, because you're so proud of your color and your chocolate babies and melanin and all that. To me, those things just scream pride. So I'm surprised.
Yeah, well, I think it's been a journey for sure. I definitely was, before I was the person who was showing my videos to about 100 different people trying to get feedback because I didn't think it was good enough. And so now I've created this concept where it's like protect your genius and trust your genius. So if you have a genius thought or idea, or God gives you a dream, it's not your responsibility to get other people to believe in what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like it's your responsibility to manifest the dream that God gave you so that other people can see it, because they can't see it, right? So your dreams are really nobody else's business. What you manifest is, you know. And so I've been like, over the course of, you know, the 3 or 4 years I've been doing this, like I've been thinking so much about, I just been like, I'm a genius. Sometimes I just
feeling like Kanye.
I'll be like, they're not messing with me. Like I'll just start saying that to myself. And it was similar like to the moment before I walked out on the stage, any stage really, but when I walked out in front of the TED Talk, when I did the TED Talk last year, I was extremely nervous. And you know, you don't notice about TED, but they have someone backstage to make sure you don't run.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they have a person back there just kind of watching you. And like anytime like I moved and got out of his sight, you could see him peeking around the corner. He's just watching me. And it was like I was so nervous and I was unprepared and I just was not ready to go out on that stage. But right before I got up on that stage, I was like, man, this is not about me. This is about going and get the people that may have something to learn from what I can give them. You know what I mean? And this moment is bigger than me. And so get out of your own way and go out there and serve your purpose. And so that's it's a choice to have low self-esteem.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead.
Being on TED Talk, that's a huge deal. How did that come about, and what was the response that you received afterwards?
You know, it was like one of those things where I was at the right place at the right time. You know, I did my first speaking engagement about a year and a half ago, Dad 2.0. I met the brand ambassador coordinator for Best Buy, who I didn't have the numbers yet to be on their team, but you know, my manager talked me up at the time. He talked me up, and I got the opportunity to be a part of a Best Buy ambassadorship. One of their things is that they fly you out to Playlist Live in Florida, so you can be a part of their whole thing. And then while I was there, it was like Playlist Live was like a bunch of young people, and it was like 4 people over 30 who were just kind of hanging out together. And one of the girls was like a volunteer at TEDx, and so I just happened to meet her, and she started watching my channel. She was like, "Hey, we got an extra spot open at TEDx Mid-Atlantic. Would you like to come?" And I was like, "Sure." And then I didn't hear anything back from them. And then like 2 weeks before, they were like, "Hey, do you still want to come?" And I was like, "I don't have anything prepared." They were like, "Just come and be funny." And I was like, "What?" So that's what happened after that. And then, you know, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So when I got out to DC, I went to go see all my friends and family. And then my mom and my brother came out to watch me speak. And that was kind of one of the most impactful moments, because before that time, my mom kept asking my wife when I was going to get a real job, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so I think at that point, she kind of was like, "Oh, he's doing something." You know what I mean?
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
You talked about your dream and your brand and that kind of thing. So what, if you just had to sum it up, as they call it, elevator speech or what have you, in a really short something, what would you say that your brand is, as a couple, first, and then individually? What's your brand? What's your dream? And that, you know, where is this leading? Where is it going? What would you like to see it go?
I don't think we've. I think because we're new at the couple thing and the family thing, it hasn't been something at the forefront. They've been kind of existing in my universe as of late. But we are forming more thoughts toward the family aspect of what we do. But Belief in Fatherhood is available to give hope to mothers, equip fathers, and inspire children through all different types of forms of art. That's what I want to do. That's the what do they call it? The
mission statement.
Yeah, the mission statement.
Okay.
But you know, we use all types of mediums for that. As far as the husband and wife aspect of it, I'm not sure yet. But I know with Yvette being on board, it's been cool not to be alone in it, because before it's just kind of like, yo, I'm doing this thing, and you know. But now she's a part of what I'm doing, and so it means a lot more to me. So I think we're still working on that part.
And it looks like you guys are having fun, and like you have great chemistry, which I guess is important for a married couple to have good chemistry. But it really is interesting just to watch you together, just interacting. So I can imagine you'll be very, very successful. So that kind of segues into the next question about how married are you? I know you said that part of it is new, but how did you decide to branch into that? Where'd that come from?
Initially, I think it was from Belief in Fatherhood. We wanted to do like a book club type thing, where the people that watched Belief in Fatherhood, we choose a book and we'd all like read along with it and have discussions about it, kind of live every week or every other week. And we never got it going. And so one day I was like, let's just start. Let's just talk or whatever. And so we decided that we would do it as a podcast. And then it became the How Married Are You podcast.
Well, I would make these jokes on Instagram where like I would be like on the toilet and Yvette would come. No. Yvette would be on the toilet and she'd be like, "Give me a kiss," and I'd be like, "No," and she'd be like, "Well, give me a kiss, come on. And I just go on Instagram and be like, how married are you? Would you kiss your
Oh, yeah.
spouse? You just wait till she's done. You know what I mean?
I was going to
So,
say it. I guess the answer is it depends on what she's doing on the toilet.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, it was like it became this running joke, and people were like, yeah, that's a good name for it. How married are you? And so that's what stuck.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one of the videos that you did that we reposted, you were talking about going buying tampons, and a friend of ours had just said that a little while ago to us. He has like 4 or 5 daughters, and he said when his daughters went to college, they called him and asked what kind of tampons did they need.
Oh my god. What a great dad.
Yeah, that's funny. So,
Tampons is a whole different world, though. Like, I think there needs to be a class on that, like in premarital. Like, these are the different types of tampons because it's just confusing.
yeah, it's a
And the
lot.
longer you stay in the aisle, the more awkward it is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
So, what's it been like working together? I know you said it helped that you weren't alone anymore, but are you being creative together, or how's it going?
I don't know. I
That's a hard one. Huh?
yeah, it's a hard one because how are we doing? I don't know.
I think we're doing okay. I think the biggest, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Is that the thing?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that I don't want to say I'm weak, but I want to say that I am not, like, the way that Glenn's mind works and the way that my mind works are totally different. And so the way that and then the vision that he has, I am totally able to see it, but my role in helping that play out, I think, is where the challenge comes in, because I don't know how to say it, but it's basically, I don't necessarily know how to, like, what my role is. I guess we're still trying to figure out my role.
Well, the thing is,
And
this.
Glenn has, like, a vision for, like, what that looks like, but you know how it's hard to do something if you don't see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Well, this is the thing. I think.
What do you think?
I think Yvette will tell me, like, yo, you know what I want to do? I want to go to Alaska. I want to
Oh
go
my gosh.
cruise, and I want to go this and this. And I'm thinking, like, how are we gonna do that? Or she'll be like, listen, like, in the future, I want to, like, put on marriage conferences. So when you say, like, okay, I want to put on marriage conferences, I think, how are we going to gain an audience for marriage conferences? And so that's where How Married Are You is kind of birthed out of, is like, hey, what do we want to do in the future? How can we build an audience for that now? And I want this to be ran by Yvette. Like, I would like to just be like, here, this is how you edit the videos and, just run it. I think Yvette, and she hates when I say this, and I know I'm going to get a stare down right now, but she's still transitioning into what it feels and looks like to be a stay-at-home mom who's homeschooling. You know what I mean? And so when you add all those different things in there, and you also have friends who are like, hey, we're going to go do this. You want to do this? I'm sacrificing everything, for what I have going on. But it's harder for her to say no because she enjoys putting things on for our community. She's kind of like the glue in our community. And so I think she's still trying to get adjusted. I don't want it to be like we're still trying to figure out my role. I want her to take hold of the role and do whatever she wants with it.
Right.
If she's like, tomorrow, she's like, hey, we're taking How Married Are You off of Anchor and we're going to put it on this because the analytics are better. I'm like, cool, do your thing. You know what I mean? But my responsibility now is it's like you ever see like kids playing this like keep the balloons off the ground game?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like they're trying to, right. And so I feel like I'm just trying to keep the balloon off the ground. You know what I mean? Like I'm running back over before it hits the ground and throwing it back up. But I'm also keeping other balloons up off the ground. And so for me, I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's in my brain because this is our survival. This is how we're going to make it, and it's never been on my shoulders like this before. And now that it is on my shoulders, I'm trying to like hold it and like do like a Olympic pose. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to sit up there and me us to be able to show the weight and be able to pass this along to our children,
Mhm.
and our community. Like I want people in our local community to be able to eat off of what we're doing. So I do have a big vision, but I don't feel like Yvette is blinded by that. Like I think she can see the vision. I just think sometimes she gets a little distracted. Yeah, she gets a little distracted because we live in a very small house. Our house is tiny. We have a small car, so we were like, "Yo, we need a new car. We need a new house." But I'm like, before we do that, we don't have to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so right now, it's just kind of this weird moment where we're just grinding away, and we may not be able to really reap the benefits for a year or so.
Right, right. Now, you mentioned your community a few times. I'm assuming you have a large local community, but obviously you also have a very large social media community. Do people reach out to you much, or do they? I would imagine that people look up to you and say, "This is what I want to do too." I know there's a lot of dads out there with Instagram pages and things going on, showcasing fatherhood and that kind of thing. But you seem to be doing very, very well. So do they reach out to you wanting tips? Do you all get together and kind of do the whole, brotherhood thing together, or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes. Most of the time, it is a lot of that. Honestly, it's a lot of like, "Yo, can you teach me how to edit video?" And that right there is just super hard. Like I can't teach you how to edit video, but you can figure it out. Like you can YouTube it. Like,
Yeah.
But personally, me, because of everything I have on my plate, I can't teach you.
Right.
Always down to give tips. Always down to give ideas and help other people do what I do. But how some people are just different. So I have to realize that it's not all me. Like Theo, Uriah, and Anaya are hilarious children. They are really funny. They're interesting. My wife is funny. We have very different views. Our family dynamic is just different. So if you try to do what I do, you're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be really difficult. And then you add in the fact that the music production and the cameras and the style of editing, and it's really hard to just jack the style. Some people can pull it off though. I've seen it, but I think people want permission instead of like. They want permission to do what they want to do instead of just going and doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's hard to limit someone else's universe in that way.
Yeah.
I'm always down to help other men, like because we need more Black fathers out there. I don't need to be the only one. Me and LaGuardia, like we don't need to be the only two dads out here. And I'm giving dudes tips for sure. Like I'm getting on the phone with like dudes at an hour at a time and just like, "Hey man, this is what I think about your channel. This is what I think you should do."
That's cool.
But at the same time, there is like, like I need you to do it for you and your community. You know what I mean? And don't get mad because your numbers aren't looking like my numbers. Because I used to get mad when my numbers weren't looking like someone else's numbers who has 10 million subscribers. You know what I mean? But if we compare ourselves, then we all lose.
Right.
Exactly. You, in terms of working together, do you think that it's had a positive impact on your marriage?
Definitely.
Oh heck yeah.
Oh, good. That's
Yeah, like because it's hard. Like so. I'm a super deep thinker, right? And I'll be wanting to talk about stuff. And then you're gonna be like, "Man, I don't know." You know what I mean? Like, and this was most of our marriage because she would just come home from a day of work where she'd be like, and I'm like, "Yeah," and I'll be having like this introspective thought, and it's just like she's like, "Yeah, I don't really feel like talking about that right now." I just want to kind of zone out because I've been teaching kids high level math all day, and some of those kids are speaking different languages. So she's like fighting this war. That's really hard to win. But now that we have like this dedicated time where we just sit and talk about things that we're scared to talk about ourselves, and we're talking about them from everyone, it's just great. It's like so awkward and amazing.
That's cool.
That it brings some excitement, back into our conversations for sure.
Yeah.
And how do your kids like being so involved in what you're doing and being videotaped and all that all the time? Being out there in social media, do they like it?
I think it's kind of hard to tell right now at the ages they're at. They do, like, there are times when they will say, "Mom, record me doing this," or "Take a picture of me doing this," or whatever. So I think there is a level of awareness to it, but I don't really know if they have a full understanding of how their life is being shared. Our oldest, Theophilus, I think he is probably the closest to having a more full understanding of it, and I think that he enjoys it to a certain degree. But yeah.
So tell us about, you mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say he's way more aware because people will walk up to him and say, "Hey, I watch you on YouTube."
Oh,
and so he's like, "What's YouTube?" You know what I mean? Like,
so he's a celebrity.
Unfortunately, that's what people think. And so it's really hard to come up to a child, you know, especially when you know, he was on the Apple Billboard like all around the world.
Oh wow!
Years.
Cool.
Yeah, and so people walk into him and be like, "Man, you're famous," and that's like such a terrible thing to say to someone who's 3.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of like, what is fame? Anyway?
Yeah.
And first of all, like, once you just say, "Hi, my name's this, and I like you know, your picture." You know what I mean? Like, so it's definitely is awkward because you just never know how other people are affected by. And when they're starstruck seeing your kid, and your kid's like, "Yo, you got any gummy bears?" Or, you know what I mean? Like, they just don't care. So yeah.
Let's talk about parenting for a second. I know you posted something about your response to your son in dealing with Yvette. You did something recently about that, right?
Me or Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn. You posted something about. I think in the caption you said something about knowing that people wouldn't necessarily agree with you not jumping on your son for the way he responded to his mom.
Oh
Well, that was So he's been talking a little reckless lately, and people expect me to be very much like, you know, speak when you're spoken to. You a child, stay in the child's place. Don't ask me why. Because if I tell him, "Hey man, go put on your shoes," why? Like, if I was a kid, I used to get in trouble for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, yo, you should know why you're. I want my son to question everything. If someone says, "Hey, get in the car," where are we going?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, if I allow him to ask me those things, he's gonna ask a stranger those things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah, like, I think there is a different approach to how we're parenting because we're seeing the effects of how we were parented, and it's not that it was done bad, but it just was different. And so I'm realizing that the reason why I was so I had low self-esteem so much is because I wasn't allowed to say anything. You know what I'm saying? So my opinion didn't matter. And so I'm like, yo, like, I don't want to like raise those same things up in my son, where like I'm scared to speak my mind. Like, it took a long time for me to be like okay with speaking my mind. And so now when anyone tries to quiet my voice, even when they're doing it in the right way, I'm like, nah, I'm gonna say what I need to say, because you know, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm just kind of like a revolutionary in that respect. But yeah, like, I heard someone else say that could be an after effect of slavery, because as a child of a slave, if you were speaking out of turn or you were loud or anything like that, you would get in trouble, or you would have the possibility of getting a whooping or something like that. So that's what someone else was trying to say. And I was like, man, that might make a little bit of sense, you know?
Wow, I bet. You know what? That's so interesting. Just the effects of slavery. I'm changing the subject drastically here. But it's the same thing with breastfeeding. You know, that's why so many black women don't breastfeed, is because we were forced to be wet nurses for such a long time. And when we didn't have to anymore, it was like, I don't have to breastfeed, so I'm not. So it's amazing just the effects of slavery still being felt today.
Yeah, so we're breaking all types of chains from our history, and from, like, you know, from our history, ancient history, and then from, like, you know, our ancestors here, and then, like, from our own upbringing, you know.
Now, Yvette, you both mentioned that you were a teacher now, so now you are teaching your probably your biggest fans and critics, your own children.
Yeah.
How big of a difference has that been for you, homeschooling your own kids as opposed to teaching other folks' kids?
I think the biggest difference for me is the classroom size,
Obviously, huh?
the age difference. So I mostly taught 8th grade and freshmen throughout my whole teaching career. And so when the kids came to me, they had some level of background knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at my own children, it's like they're a blank canvas, and it's kind of intimidating. Because before, when I was teaching, I could blame their teacher the year before and say, "Oh man, you didn't get this from that teacher." But now it's like if they didn't get something, it's because they didn't get it from me. And so I would say that is my biggest. I don't know. I wouldn't say it. I guess it is kind of a concern, but it is something that I think about constantly. It's also different because now I really feel like I do have more of freedom to differentiate instruction. In a whole classroom setting, you would have 35 plus students, and you'd be saying like, okay, I can't differentiate, so I'm going to kind of, well, you differentiate as much as possible. But I mean, if you have 35 different students with possibly 35 different learning styles, it's hard to differentiate instruction for all of them.
For sure.
And so now that I only have 2 students, it's like, man, I really am responsible to get to learn these children's, the way that they learn and actually teach to them in that way. So it's definitely been a drastic change. They are definitely my worst critics. If a lesson doesn't go well, I know it immediately. Versus in the classroom, if it didn't go well, I might not figure it out until the next day when we're, kind of trying to touch on some of the knowledge that was learned yesterday and use it in today's lesson or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still like, it's been the other day, Glenn went live on YouTube with them, and someone asked the kids, "Do you like homeschooling?" And Theo said no. Ryan said no. And so I would be lying if I didn't say that didn't hurt my feelings a little bit.
Now, did they go to regular school before that?
They've never experienced regular school.
Oh.
Now Theo currently is doing a learning academy, so it's kind of like a co-op situation.
Okay.
Where he goes one day a week and he takes a couple of different classes. And so I think that was probably one of the reasons he's starting to say he doesn't like homeschooling, because he got to experience a setting where he was among other kids his age. And I think he actually enjoyed that a lot. So I don't know. We'll figure it out, but I'm still figuring out our groove. I'm still figuring out our system. And, trying to make it fun for them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, about your style and your system. Are you doing more of a unschooling kind of thing, or just or have you plugged into a homeschooling group or some kind of certain curriculum? What are you using as your guide?
So I'm kind of doing a Mod Podge of curriculums. I'm not necessarily sticking to one curriculum across the board. And I don't know that I would say that I'm doing a full-on unschooling. I feel like if I were to say that, the unschooling community would be like, no, you're not. But I would say that my style is more of a Charlotte Mason feel to it, where we definitely like to do a lot of things where we're learning through play, but there's also some structural learning that takes place as well. So, yeah. But like I said, I still feel like I'm wet behind the ear. Like, I'm not, by no means am I a professional homeschooling mom at all.
Now, do you
still got a lot of learning to do.
Now, do you both co-teach, take turns, or are you the sole teacher, the principal and the teacher?
I'd say Glenn's the principal, I'm the teacher. I send the kids to him for discipline.
Go to the office.
Okay.
I have not been participating in much learning activities lately. The kids have this. Well, Theo has definitely expressed that he wants me to teach.
Yeah.
He wants me to take him to this place, and he had this conversation with me recently where he was like, "Hey, you're not spending enough time with the family." Da 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 da.
And you said he's 5?
Yeah, he's 5. You're distracted by your work.
He's smart.
All the time.
He's very smart.
Yeah, And so he told me recently that I said, listen, whenever you want me to spend time with you, just tell me. And so he said, okay. And he's like, I want you to spend time with me. I want you to build puzzles, and I want to go to Boomers. And so that's like a local, like, miniature golf place around here. And so, so we did puzzles yesterday, and sometime this week I'll take them to Boomers or whatever. But I used to do a lot more of the like teaching stuff and just using whatever, like I draw a picture and then we'd start like I draw a picture of a Power Ranger and I'll be like, well, how many swords does he have? And then we'll draw the swords, and then I'll be like, okay, now what else does he have and how many? And then we'll start putting them on the little character, and it was kind of like fun and stuff. But lately I've been my plate is over. My plate is full, completely with work right now. But that really can't be the reason why I'm not spending time with them, even though like I'm really at my wit's end, But it's getting better for sure.
Okay, good.
So as far as homeschooling, that's something that personally I'm interested in. I'm planning on homeschooling my son. He will be 2 in November. But as far as when you I don't know, homeschooling always seems like such a huge undertaking, especially when you talk about, okay, how long should our day be? Should we break it up with a trip or activity or what?
How structured should it be?
Yeah. And you, a vet coming from, a regular school background, are you ever tempted to kind of stick with, what as far as like maybe like a 8 to 3 p.m. kind of thing, or are you more flexible? How do you do it?
I definitely am more flexible. I don't think that we would survive an 8 to 2 type setting. None of us would. So basically, my goal is always to start school by 10 a.m. Where we're doing something, and then by noon, I'm hoping at about noon, I will turn on a Leapfrog episode. That kind of has to do with something that we may have just finished up, and then at that time I'll make lunch. Okay. And then after lunch is made, then Leapfrog gets turned off, and then they get to go eat lunch, and then we'll usually have quiet time, and then after quiet time we try to do something that is more like of an activity based, whether we go to the park or whatever. But the thing about it is, so I would say that we have a solid 2 hours of instructional type learning, but I feel like we're always learning. Like I'm always using opportunities to talk about different educational things. Like if they're playing with their dinosaurs, I'll say, hey, can you guys form 2 teams of 5, or can you sort them by color, or different things. Like if we're out driving, I was like, can you guys count the number of trees that we pass, or something like that, you know? Like I'm always looking for opportunities to kind of bring up different things. Like, what shape is that sign over there that you see, or, Yeah.
And when you talk about 2 hours for basically one-on-one, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a long time. 2 hours turns into probably a 6 or 8 hour, or is the equivalent of a 6 or 8 hour period of time in regular school. So I would think 2 hours of intensive learning or whatever, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So switching reels a little bit, back to parenting. So what is your overall message regarding parenting, or what advice do you give regarding parenting?
I would say just have grace. Like whatever you think whatever you think it's going to be like, or whatever whatever, like, especially to someone who doesn't have any children, who plans to become a parent, like whatever expectations you have, just, dump those in the trash right now, because you really don't know what it's going to be like until you're like in the seat doing it. There's this one brand, they say it's like a phrase, and it's motherhood winging it, and I really feel like a lot of the days I'm winging it, or like with the Lord's help and His grace. But my slogan for my lifetime right now is His grace is sufficient.
Amen.
And basically that's what I have to have for myself, because there are literally moments when I'm like, I failed.
Yeah.
But my kids will not like. I really think about it. If you think about it in the whole scheme of things, when I reflect on my own childhood and my parents and what they did, I don't remember all the bad days. Like I remember a lot of the fun things that they used to do, and I'm sure there were awful days, or but I still like have positive memories about my childhood, and I just trust and believe that my children will too.
When you talk about
Unlike me, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm more of a tragic type person, so I remember all the bad days. I remember really go to Ryan house. Really want to go to Ryan house, but she was being mean. I'm definitely on the opposite side of that. I think one of the best things I can do as a father is apologize, because I show how, as a man, like how important it is to recognize your faults and change. And repentance. That's something that I've just become good at over years, because I was always forced to apologize for things I didn't even do. You know what I mean? So I just kind of got good at it. But there's a whole like theme that we want our children to know certain things before they leave the house.
Yeah.
How to make money with their hands, how to be what is it? Self
Sufficient?
No, it's you were talking about this with your students. You were saying you wanted them to be
Self advocates?
No, like thinkers or something like that.
Oh, lifelong learners?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, you want them to know how to think?
Oh, I just want them to know how to think.
Yeah, because certain kids know how to like retain information, but they don't know how to think and solve problems.
Yeah.
Have discipline and stuff like that. Just things like that. So I'm always experimenting. Like if you look at Belief in Fatherhood, I just did an episode about peer pressure, where Uriah was sitting in front of this 4 Reese's cup, this king pack of Reese's, and I told him not to eat it, and then I just left him alone, and then I put a phone underneath the table and like called him and sounded like the candy was talking to him, telling him to eat the candy. And so you got to see real life if he was going to apply the things that we have taught him, meaning like, Papa said don't eat it, and he sat there and told the candy like, my dad said no, my dad said you can have it later. And so it was really cool to see this thing where, wow, the stuff that I'm trying to get through to him, like, it's actually working. So we have like a bunch of different philosophies, but it's not written on a tablet anywhere, which we should probably do.
Now, we talk a lot about just parenting today. I'm old school, so I was my kids were grown before social media is the way it is now. I can't imagine being a parent today and having to regulate phones and social media access and just access in general. It's crazy. Have you guys talked about that at all? Just how what are your plans in that regard? I know your kids are still young, so you might have a couple years. My granddaughter, she just turned 10 and got her first phone, which I think is like, okay, she's 10. To me, that's young, but they're getting younger and younger.
They are getting younger.
Yeah, I was 18 when I got my first phone.
I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
So you're 15.
Yeah.
But my phone was like a prepaid phone. But we haven't really had that conversation yet. I'm not going to lie, though. There have been times when, like, my children have been with their grandma or a friend or whatever, and I'm trying to call the adult that they're with, and they're not answering.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I wish Theo had a cell phone right now, or whatever. So I don't know what we'll do. I don't imagine giving my children a phone with internet. I would basically, I think if we were to do it, I'd give them a phone that just calls us and texts us, and they would only have it when they're not with us, type deal. Again, this is not a conversation we've had.
Yeah, I think. So. And I think we're actually cool with not being at this stage yet, because it's just like, come on, man, like
you blink and you'll be there, though. Blink and you'll be there.
Yeah, and we'll definitely cross that bridge when we get to it. But it's gonna be hard, because it's like, like I know parents who are on the internet and are like, my kid watches themselves and they watch YouTube, they watch other families, and I see a lot of the stuff is like very adult behavior from 10-year-old kids. You know what I mean? And so I have an issue with that, but I also don't know the solution at this current time. So I'm not sure, but I do believe that we will be pretty strict with because they're not even allowed to watch like their favorite shows. Like right now, they can't watch Power Rangers because they kiss on that show. So it's a lot of kissing, and so sometimes we'll be listening to Theo and Uriah talk, and then Theo goes, "But are you gonna kiss her?" And I'm like, "Well, who are you talking about?" Like, what is going on? Like, what are you talking about that for? And so they learn this stuff from Power Rangers or Ninjago or like these little shows, and it's like we have to really be paying attention to everything because it sneaks up on you.
And you all are Christians, right? Yeah. So are we. Do you kind of weave that into your lessons at all? Your schooling, is it totally separate?
So every week we have a memory verse. Well, every week we're supposed to have a memory verse. We've had the same memory verse for 2 weeks now.
Because I ain't remember.
That's okay.
But yeah, this year it is something that I'm trying to. I even have like a devotional, but the devotional I have, I think, is too mature for them.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna have to come up with my own devotionals for them because I have yet to find a book that I think is suitable for their age, that it actually has some kind of application into it. They have like little children devotionals, but I really want there to be an application aspect of it. So if there's any recommendations out there and anyone's listening, feel free to direct message me. But so we definitely plan to incorporate that into their everyday life.
And you know, it's just to be honest for a moment, our relationships with the Lord have always been very separate. Like even with each other, like we don't find ourselves like together in scripture, together in prayer often enough. You know what I mean? So and that's a problem. And so even as I'm thinking about it now, it's like, man, like it would be easier to roll over into their conversations with them if we were more active in that whole way. And that was kind of the reason for like, we're going to do a book club, and the book club is going to serve as just kind of like devotional / time together where we can talk. But it just became this discussion segment. And so the more we, hash these things out and we get on a better schedule, I feel like we'll be able to process through some of those times. And we have had good seasons where like in the scriptures a lot together, and then some other seasons where it's just kind of like, we aren't at all. And so that's just something we really have to work on.
I even think it's important for because for me, when I'm in my word, it's mostly like, okay, I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and read my Bible and do whatever while everyone's still asleep. And so the kids don't really get to see me in my Bible and doing that. And so I have to come to grips with the fact that it has to look different. Like it might not be a quiet, time for me anymore, but I do want the kids to know that this is something I do regularly. And I want them to build the same discipline.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's important. So what do you do when you're not working? What else do you guys do? When you're not doing How Married Are You and not on social media and YouTubing and videotaping and podcasting and
well, apparently somebody's a puppeteer, right?
Oh yes. Tell us about that.
So that's my jam. So as far as like the homeschooling in my specific way goes, I'd like to start doing more work with the puppet and Frank. I want to create quality, super high quality content for Black children. I don't feel like that exists.
I
feel like it's kind of like this all-inclusive thing, or it's like completely white. And so I want to create stuff with the puppet Frank and the Chocolate Babies, just kind of like this thing where the future of belief and fatherhood sits in that place where we may not be making family vlogs anymore or as consistently, or it may plateau, but Frank, the music that we're producing for it, the content is just really good and it's solid, and I think it's going to be in a space where we're going to be able to retire on what Frank is doing, and it won't have to rely so much on our family being out there.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we feel like we did a lot of research, but I missed that. So tell us about Frank. This is one of your puppets?
Yeah, so Frank is the only puppet I have. He's Frank Puppet is he's a old black dude who just kind of, me and him don't get along, but he loves the kids and he loves to do that. He exists in our universe. I started messing around with him when I was on Snapchat, and they had this filter that I really loved, and it was like this filter, and I did this little voice, and it was funny, and then they stopped putting the filter on there. So Yvette gave me the permission to like spend a large amount of money getting this puppet built to replace the filter. And so I built this puppet and I started messing around with it, and I put out a couple episodes, and I didn't realize how hard it was for me to actually produce this stuff. It's super hard. So I'm gonna have to do like some major fundraising to get like everything I want to get. Basically, I want animation, I want it to be competitive to Sesame Street, I want it to look clean and just done well. And so I'm gonna have to hire some people and stuff like that, but that's kind of the thing. But that is also work.
That's incredible.
When it comes to,
Yeah, that is.
so that's the big goal. So I'll have to send you guys some pictures over to show you what it looks like. But
we'd love that. Wow.
but that's actually work too. So I'm working all the time. Like I work a lot.
So what's the age range for your Frank character? What age is it targeted toward?
Anaya loves him to death.
She's 18 months.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
okay.
18 months. So around a year and a half, all the way to about 6, I think. Now there will be deeper concepts. Like if you watch it as an adult, you'll be able to understand deeper things. Like I really got inspired by the Mr. Rogers documentary. I don't know if you have seen that yet.
No, I haven't.
My Neighbor.
I've heard about it.
It is incredible. Like cry. You're going to cry. It's good. It's so
I've
good.
heard that. I don't know why I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard that about it. So I'm gonna have to check it out.
So the thing is about Mr. Rogers, he's a ordained minister. Won't You Be My Neighbor was a concept drawn from Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. And he's like this. And so the concepts he was talking about was when like JFK got assassinated, he was talking about that on the freaking show. You know what I'm saying? And so he was talking about this stuff to kids, and so I'm trying to bridge the gap between older people and young people can exist in the same way, and they can have very adult conversations and speak truths to each other. And most of the show is about friendship. It's about loving people no matter who they are, what they believe, or whatever. It's just loving. It's all about like having friendships and keeping friends together. That's Frank's theme. And so that's pretty much my bread and butter. But I've been working on that as well for a long time.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. We would definitely want to get some more information regarding that. That sounds really fascinating.
Yes. Unfortunately, as hard as it is to believe, we're actually at the end of the show.
Okay.
Yeah. This hour goes by every time so fast.
Yeah, it really did.
But this has really been just a really great conversation. And you both are hilarious. We are so happy that you were able to join us. So before we go, how can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, well, YouTube, Belief in Fatherhood, anywhere on any podcast platform, How Married Are You? And follow my wife on Instagram, Mrs. Melanin. And yeah, that's pretty much how you find us in beliefinfatherhood.com. You can pick up like some merchant. The book, It's Bedtime Now. Any person who has a child or know anybody with a child, this book is hilarious. I've been reading a lot of bedtime stories lately, and a lot of them are whack. But this book that I wrote is really good. So if you guys,
Even if you do say so yourself, huh?
No, really, I'm really being honest. If it was whack, I would tell you. I would be like, don't buy it. But it's a funny book, and it features all of us, and this is the way we're probably going to go into the black is putting out books instead of doing YouTube videos. So
And you said the book is actually out?
yeah, it's called It's Bedtime Now.
Okay.
And that's on your website?
Yes, ma'am. BeliefInFatherhood.com.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
And-
I read to my son every day.
And for those people who are not familiar, how'd you come up with the spelling for belief? I don't know if we asked that.
Yeah, so belief is spelled BELIEF, and that has the word lie, like right in the middle of it. So I just flipped it out, like leaf from a tree, always changing. Eventually you'll fall. You know what I'm saying? Like deciduous kind of style. So
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And we want to remind everybody to remember Crunchy Boutique, the natural parenting store in Arlington, Texas, and online. Crunchy Boutique is your one-stop shop for cloth diapers, breastfeeding supplies, baby carriers, natural skincare, and all other products for your entire family. We want to thank our listeners and Facebook Live viewers. Be sure to catch us each and every Monday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on our Facebook page, Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Kima. If you'd like to continue on today's conversation, please feel free to comment on the video on Facebook and we will respond. Remember that in addition to watching our show here on Facebook Live, we have changed to a podcast format, and all of our shows will be found on Podbean. Be sure to join us for our bonus show on Thursday when we welcome Jennifer Sardui, to discuss all that she's doing with Birth Texas. Then on next Monday, we will have the Crunchy Mommy from Instagram on the show. So be sure to tune in on both days. Again, thank you
Thank
both
you
for joining
so
us.
much, Yvette and Glenn. We so appreciated having you with us.
Yes. And we
Thank
will,
you for having us.
Yes.
yeah, thank you. So that's the end of the show, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.